I think being the last at the end of a whole day is both an extraordinary privilege and a kind of complete poison chalice. So I want to start by saying anything that I say is going to be a bit partial, and that's my right. So I think as Gillian Fletcher's contribution made clear, we need those who are marginalised to name the invisible power that shapes what's possible. But convening the kinds of safe spaces that people talked of and that enables people without power and who are marginalised to be able to speak takes time. I'm reminded very much of some work that Petra Karachi has done around collaboration as a developmental skill and capacity, and the importance for all of us to recognise the importance not only of enabling very diverse voices to be at the table, but to really investing in the time for and using that convening role that many of us have with great care, because collaboration, getting to a point of trust, to understand each other, to let go of agendas takes an enormous amount of time, and resourcing that and resourcing the outcomes that come from it I think is really important. That inclusion we need to look for is not to be one that doesn't disappear difference, but recognises that difference is additive and creates exponential impacts in marginalisation. I don't want to underplay the tensions and the difficulties of that. I want to just, to illustrate that, look at some of the points that Jane Hutchinson made in her paper around understanding local context and the politics that poor people navigate every day. It points to the challenge of supporting change in context where material deprivation continues to underpin the value and importance of material outcomes. And then you look at some of the challenges in getting more women into politics in the Pacific, and Terence Wood's work around the way in which cargo politics creates particular barriers for women, and you see and understand the tensions and the difficulties that we're all trying to navigate each day. So I don't want to underestimate that. I think some important tensions for me were highlighted in the discussion around sexual orientation and gender identity. In particular, how to strengthen the focus on intersectionality while recognising that discrimination based on the binary of gender is embedded deep in social, economic and cultural structures, and that reproduces difference every day. So I think in looking to have a broader understanding of sexual orientation and gender identity, we also need to recognise the ways in which structures of power continue to reproduce binaries of various kinds. I think there was a reference to the idea of deviance being kind of crazy people who believe against all odds that change is possible. I think that sounds like many feminists I know who continue to work for change in the context of kind of deep misogyny and patriarchy. And in that context, I want to finish with not my words, but some thinking, a bit of a kind of call to action to us as individual agents in our own organisation, and some writing from a woman called Amanda Sinclair, whose 2007 book, Leadership for the Disillusioned, I found very helpful in trying to think about how one acts in contexts of complexity and difficulty when one has power. And where she writes, thinking about leadership as a way of being that is reflective and thoughtful about self, that values relationships in the present, that's connected to others and embodied, that is not narrowly striving or ego-driven, and that is liberating in its effects. This leadership is work that almost all of us do at some time or another. This is not the captains of industry type of leadership, but the work we do as role models, as teachers, parents, problem solvers, activists, spokespeople and organisers. Some lead simply by scrutinising and questioning standards. Others do so by acting according to principles or values, when those around them have opted for pragmatism, because all of us are also sometimes followers. We all have an interest in leadership. We shouldn't leave the thinking and writing about leadership to those who designate themselves experts. So I don't want to be motherhood in kind of statements here, but I think that call to think of ourselves as agents, to recognise the difficult spaces we are in, and to try to bring thoughtful people together who co-create that next path forward at every step. That seems to me often what good leadership is. It isn't about the solutions, because often those solutions privilege the things that are short-term and more readily solvable. It's about bringing good people of goodwill together and giving them enough space to think creatively, find that line of best fit, and then resourcing that next step.